It's time for Intelligent Machines. Paris Martineau is here. Jeff Jarvis is here. We didn't expect this. He's joining us from his hospital bed because he was so excited about our interview. This week, we talked to Thomas Haigh, the author of A New History of AI. Intelligent Machines from the Pitt is next.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is Intelligent Machines with Paris Martineau and Jeff Jarvis. Episode 854, recorded Wednesday, January 21st, 2026. Welcome to the Pit. It's time for Intelligent Machines, the show where we cover the latest in AI, robotics, and all the smart doodads all around you in your home these days. Soon, someday, we'll be doing this show and a humanoid robot will creep up behind me and brain me, probably. Say hello to our wonderful Paris Martineau from Consumer Reports, where she's an investigative reporter.
Hello. I will be sad the day a robot brains you, but I will respect the robot's authority regardless.
I will have earned it, no doubt. The robot may be remotely controlled by one Paris Martineau. We're not sure.
We don't know.
It could be. Now, this is a little weird. I'm going to have to set this up. We did not expect Jeff Jarvis to be here today because Jeff...
In fact, we expected the opposite because that's the only thing that would make sense given what you're about to say.
Absolutely. He took a tumble. He talked about it last week. He injured his coccyx, and you don't have to look that up. It's it's a part of his body near the nether regions, and he by making a bed apparently, which bed fought back. But then, as a result, he got checked up, and it turned out he had other issues. Joining us now from the hospital, from his hospital bed, I don't believe this. Not Mike Elgin, Jeff Jarvis. Hello, Jeff. Are you okay?
Oh, there, guy. I just
had a fever. What was your
therapy?
Your fever was like 105 or something.
I'm saying you're not allowed to be here. We're allowing you to be here only because you seem to really want to for a little bit for our interview. But afterwards, we're going to cast you off to go on forced bed rest.
This is
that's all I've been doing. So it turns out I had compression fracture in my L3.
Oh, well, everybody knows. That's not your coccyx. Yes.
No, that's not. And then I finally went to see urgent care on Thursday after the Sunday accident.
Yikes.
And I had a fever. And it was a little mysterious. And on Friday, it got much worse. The pain got wildly bad, horribly bad. Saturday, I could not get out of bed. I fell out of bed, old men, and was carried by ambulance on a stretcher to the hospital here in Morristown, and they tested, and I'm very fortunate because they found a staph infection.
Oh, yikes! Which
can lead to sepsis, which can kill you. And so I'm on lots of antibiotics through the IV and physical therapy and all kinds of other things. So I'm glad to be here. But
worst nightmare. She thinks if I'm going to work with two old guys, they're going to start talking about their
their I'm just saying you're thinking, Jeff, I'm glad that you're safe. I'm glad that you're here talking with us.
This is pretty weird.
Also, I'm most of all thinking, is this the first time in Twit history that someone has joined the podcast from a hospital bed?
Oh, most definitely. This is
it the first time in podcast history?
It might be
a hospital bed.
Because
it's so foolish. I have been pushing for Thomas Haigh to come on. You'll meet him in a moment to be our guest, and I felt awful that I was really fascinated by his work. I got to know him at the Computer History Museum event on the pioneers of desktop publishing, which was key to my next book, Hot Type. And so I thought I'd just call in to say hello. And then Elgin now has an emergency, so he can't be here.
So we're glad you're here.
I'm here for a while.
Yeah. Well, let me introduce, and you introduced us to Thomas Haigh. He's a historian of computing, which is kind of, for both of us, Jeff and I, we're both fans of history, kind of catnip. He's written many books. You'll find them at his website, tomandmaria.com/Tom, including a new history of modern computing, ENIAC in action, exploring the early digital. And his newest book is all about AI, the history of AI. Thomas, welcome to Intelligent Machines, the brand that wouldn't die. I think that's a provocative title because you say AI is really a marketing term.
Yes.
And we know it is now when it utters from Sam Altman's lips, for sure. But it's a marketing term with quite a kind of ancient history. Tell us about, who first coined the term AI?
Well, the term was invented by John McCarthy in 1955 to attach to a proposal to the Rockefeller Foundation to get money to have a summer school and invite his friends to Dartmouth College.
In fact, a very famous conference of the first AI conference.
Yeah, and it wasn't the first time people had talked about computers and thought there'd been a conference in Paris some years earlier. In fact, the idea that computers are like brains is as old as the electronic computer. It was something that was informing John von Neumann as he was developing modern computer architecture. But the specific phrase artificial intelligence has got that very exact time and purpose it was invented. And my argument in the book is that it's functioned effectively for the most part with a large period of the AI winter when it went out of fashion as a means to market and sell things. That's not to say that it's not real. I mean, one of the things that I try and stress in the introduction to the book is that this is not to insult AI and say that it's not real, that it doesn't produce technologies that are worthwhile or work, but it does. And you can consider any academic discipline through the lens of being a brand. So you can think of physics as a brand or biology. But I think within computer science, if you compare artificial intelligence to other subfields like communication, databases, graphics, there's been a lot more historical change over time in what kind of approaches the AI brand has been associated with than there has been in those areas. So I think while you can consider anything as a brand, I think it's unusually informative when you consider the history of AI to bring to the forefront its brand-like qualities.
Well, and also the way you name something informs how you think about it. And so it's a little chicken and egg. Maybe we always thought about computers as kind of artificial brains, but as soon as you put the word artificial intelligence in the language, now that's what you're defining, really.
It makes the whole endeavor much loftier than cybernetics.
A mechanical brain, yeah. Here's a picture, by the way, from the book, The Artificial Intelligence, The History of a Brand, of that first summer Dartmouth concert. Claude Shannon is there, Marvin Minsky, and John McCarthy himself. How close to what we now think of as AI was this 1955 conception of AI? Is it something completely different, or is it a reasonable precursor for what we have today?
Well, in some ways, the 1955 conception of AI was closer to what we have today than the 1975 or the 1985 conception of AI was.
The dates of the other AI winters. Yes, there have been many.
Well, that's actually something I claim in the book, that we've only had the one.
Oh, okay.
Maybe we'll
talk
about that as well.
Winter? Okay. Let's talk about that.
Early on, AI was defined essentially as getting computers to do some kinds of things that currently only humans can do. So they didn't try and define exactly what was meant by intelligence. And from some viewpoints, computers have always been superhuman. Even back then, they could carry out numerical calculations far quicker than any human. So there was never a precise kind of definition, but the original idea was that with clever programming, we can get computers to do a whole bunch of things that they can't currently do, that in humans we associate with intelligence. And famously, the initial proponents of AI in the early 60s through to about 1970 made some extremely aggressive predictions that within 10 years or so, some of them even shorter time spans, computers would basically be able to do anything that humans could in terms of intellectual work.
Yeah.
Now, where have I heard that sort of over-promising before?
So I start that by talking about the modern day AI hype and then going back and saying there's a real continuity in some of the promises that were made. So that's a connection back to the beginning. The specific technologies, at the very beginning, they were interested in neural net type approaches and in symbolic manipulation approaches. So this is back in the late 50s into the early 60s. By the end of the 60s, as AI matured as a field within computer science, associated particularly with labs at Stanford, MIT, and Carnegie Mellon, they redefined the scope of what was included in it to push out neural networks. So neural network development continued, but it didn't continue under the umbrella of the AI brand. It was called pattern recognition, then it was called machine learning, and then deep learning. So that, I think, is a pretty good example of how there's not stability over time in terms of the specific technologies and approaches that people have meant when they say AI.
Yeah. In fact, it was that decision to follow symbolic AI versus neural networks that kind of did lead to those AI winters or single winter. By the way, I was reading in your book about the general problem solver, and I had to pull out Peter Norvig's 1992 book about artificial intelligence programming, in which, in one of the very first chapters, we write the GPS, the general problem solver, and it's incredibly primitive compared to, but it's a symbolic AI. It's I guess the best way to describe it would be a kind of bunch of if-then statements, right? It's a very logical, deterministic kind of thing. Very different from the AI we know today. You said something interesting, that there's only been one AI winter. So was it one long winter?
Well, I mean, if you go to Wikipedia or, just Google AI history, you'll probably find some website that's been set up by a company that wants to sell you something and has, pulled together some information without caring enormously about the historical specifics. But the received wisdom has become that AI did well in the 60s, then it did badly in the mid and late 70s. It did well again in the 80s around expert systems, and the first time that AI is really having startups and venture capital and industrial enthusiasm in the 80s, and that's absolutely true. And then it does badly in the 90s and early 2000s before it revives around neural networks. And the part of that I disagree with is, I think AI was doing pretty well in the 70s outside some very specific factors around DARPA, which had been funding research, its change in mission after the Vietnam War, that led to MIT and the McCarthy's Sale Lab at Stanford not getting the same kind of very easy money that they had before. So I think there was a kind of localized frost around 2 or 3 labs in the US and Edinburgh in the UK. And those labs really dominated the field. So the people who wrote memoirs and gave speeches at AI conferences and so on were giving the experience of people who've been in a position essentially of enormous privilege previously, getting large amounts of money without having to do formal proposals or worry about milestones or deliverables or peer review, and found themselves in diminished circumstances. But if you do, the good historian thing and look a little bit more broadly at metrics like the number of members in artificial intelligence associations, which at that point in the 70s was primarily special interest group of the Association for Computing Machinery, or you look outside those elite labs at the number of people going to conferences, you look at the spread of AI internationally. I mean, this period of the late 70s, when conventional wisdom says there was a major cutback in the field, is when the national AI associations in European countries and the Soviet Union first get founded. It's the first regular AI meeting. And even at Stanford, I think it's a real split screen thing. because on the one hand, McCarthy's lab is struggling to get the same amount of funding from DARPA. On the other hand, Ed Feigenbaum's teams around expert systems are doing really great. So I asked Feigenbaum, did he think the 70s were a period of retrenchment? And he said, no, the 70s was great. They kept giving me more money. Everything was coming together. So I think it's an example where a very specific historical perspective from a handful of elite lab leaders and their grad students has really warped our understanding of what was going on with AI in the 70s.
I'm curious,
Leo,
why do you think
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, Jeff.
You're the one in the hospital bed, Jeff. I think
You're-
normally I would let Paris go, but
No, you
You're the
simply
invalid.
have to. when you
just fixed
zoom
my,
in from a hospital bed, you get
my
to
IV.
ask the questions.
oh, good. A new
Oh
bag.
my,
a new
we're gonna
Ringer's
ask.
bag. Good.
I'm gonna have 75 questions for you, Jeff, once we finish this interview.
Oh,
but
man.
go ahead for right now.
So I just want to react to what Thomas said, Leo, because you've long said that there were two AI winners. And I'm curious how you first came across the idea that AI had the first winner and what your reaction is to Thomas's very good analysis.
Well, I think it's I guess it's how you define a winner. I mean, it sounds like
Well, it's how you define AI, too.
yeah, it sounds like Feigenbaum was happy because he was getting money. Does that mean it's a successful enterprise? I think when I think of the terms AI winners, I think of it, and again, not having lived through it, I don't know, but I think of it that there were periods of great optimism, which were followed by disappointment because the AI techniques that they were espousing, like GPS or symbolic logic or whatever, didn't really expert systems didn't really deliver. Did Feigenbaum believe that that it was delivering, or he was just getting money?
He still believes that expert systems work. He's got a story he likes to tell. For example, with the diagnosis of heart conditions, that the idea with expert systems was it's somewhat coming out of the difficulty of building general purpose intelligence, which had not at all progressed according to the optimistic predictions of the 60s. Right. So by the 70s, the idea was, you think, experts need to be smarter, but maybe actually because they have very specific domain knowledge, it's easier to simulate a high-level international expert than it is to simulate basic common sense. And Feigenbaum likes to tell stories of working with an expert in diagnosing heart conditions and asking some questions, eliciting the knowledge, expressing it in rules that would then go into the Lisp-based inference engine, and then running that against some test cases, seeing where it went wrong, going back to the expert saying, why didn't it reach the right condition here? And then the expert says, oh, well, what I forgot to say is in these circumstances, actually you do this other thing. And he claimed that once you got to a couple hundred rules, you pretty much could represent any kind of expert knowledge. And then they did tests where they would take the systems for medical diagnosis and other kinds of expertise, run them against test problems, show the same test problems to a panel of experts, and they would claim that the systems in those very narrow areas could outperform what the experts could do, or at least what a mid-level expert could do. So the logic would be, if you've got something that can diagnose blood infections much better than the typical doctor, then that will be something that would be worth rolling out, and there's a real market for it. And a lot of the 80s AI boom was very specifically an expert systems boom, because the logic for that was, maybe we haven't solved the problems of general intelligence, we certainly haven't achieved superhuman intelligence, but we can make systems that are economically viable and can pay for themselves by taking expert knowledge and making it portable and putting it in a little software box. And that's also one of the reasons I said earlier that in some ways the modern discourse about AI has got more to do with the very early days discourse of rapidly achieving general purpose human intelligence versus the ideas that came in the 70s and 80s, where the rhetoric was much more about, let's not even talk about the Turing test, but let's just say there are ways that we can make computers more economically valuable by encoding knowledge and using it to help them perform better.
So a different goal meant that it wasn't winter because they were achieving that particular goal of an system.
I mean, winters and summers have conventionally been expressed in terms of funding for AI.
Right.
And of course, that's downstream for belief in AI. So they go together. So the original
we're
concept,
in a glorious summer right now, aren't we?
We're in a very endless summer, it seems. I'm curious, though, why do you think that the industry is attached and has remained attached to this notion of the 70s being a first AI winter? What do you think explains that, and what do you think it says kind of about that as a narrative device for the industry?
Yeah, well, it's such a pervasive narrative. Initially, I assumed it must be true. And, then I went back and just did some fairly low-hanging fruit, things like looking at memberships in the associations or seeing when AI spread overseas. And then I was like, the other thing I just did is a Google Ngram is a great tool for seeing how much people are talking about things. Yeah. I've got some of those in the book. If you do Google Ngram for artificial intelligence, there is steady growth in the 70s and then a real peak in the 80s. And you do definitely see the real AI winter of the 90s in the Google Ngram and in participation at conferences and in those kinds of metrics. You don't see any kind of broad-based drop-off for AI in the 70s. The other thing, the phrase AI winter, you can date very precisely.
We have the Ngram, by the way, Benito, if you pull that up.
Yeah. To a 1984 panel at the American Association for the Advancement of AI. And they're worried, basically. The 84 is real boom times. They're getting lots of money. People are being lured away from completing their PhDs by industry jobs. In many ways, everything is going great. The conference is feeling more like a trade show than an academic venue. But some of them are saying, I don't trust this. I think maybe we're overhyping it. This is all going to end in tears. And at that point, people are worried about a nuclear winter. So the idea of AI winter, that there's fallout, the sun gets blocked out, everything dies. Now, of course, you might say losing funding for AI is not quite the same as everything dying, but that was the analogy. And if you look at the quote that they have there about what's going to happen, it pretty much precisely defines what happens 4 or 5 years later. Companies cut their AI groups. The government, which had been funding something called the Strategic Computer Initiative, cuts back. Autonomous vehicles fail to roll. And the end of that quote, there's a line I really like about everybody stops calling whatever they're doing AI and finds a different name for it. Yeah. Which pretty much is what happened. But the funny thing is, at that 1984 thing, you can read the transcript of the panel discussion, and it's something like 10 pages single-spaced. Nobody says, this thing we're talking about hypothetically, we just had one of those a couple of years ago, right? So there's no sense in 1984 that there'd been an AI winter just a few years earlier. Where it seems to come from is a 1990s book by, Crevier, who had been trained in AI at MIT. And he's basically reporting the folk wisdom of MIT that the late 70s was a hard time when people had more difficulty getting money. And that is blown up into this claim that there was an enormous international, broadly based cutback in AI research in the 70s. So I think it comes again to, there was pretty much a cartel of labs in the 70s into the 80s that got to set the entire agenda for AI. And that was Stanford, MIT, Carnegie Mellon, and SRI, which was at that point largely detached from Stanford. And so the people who, I found 7 AI textbooks from the 70s. They had 8 authors. All 8 of those people had a PhD from one of those places. Yeah. So they really were the people who were being invited to give keynote speeches, who were writing memoirs, whose recollections were passed down to their grad students. And those people were in those specific places where AI funding had been extremely easy and lavish in the 60s and was less so in the 70s. And I think just the folk wisdom of AI has been turned into this historical claim of a broad-based slowdown without anyone actually attempting to look for evidence of whether it's true or not.
How much of it had to do with the Cold War as well? This is an era where we were in a battle with the Soviet Union for military supremacy. And I think that there was some. You mentioned ARPA. You mentioned the nuclear winter. Is some of this informed by the Cold War?
All of it, really. I mean, why? The period where AI is getting going in the 50s is an incredible period for the growth of science. And it's a wonderful time to be like a smart, young, geeky, science-oriented guy. Yeah. Because there are institutions like the RAND Corporation, the incredible amount of federal funding that is flowing to MIT and Stanford. I mean, it's not a coincidence that AI develops primarily at MIT and Stanford, because those two institutions are far ahead of anywhere else in terms of the amount of federal money they have. So they have more access
with the internet as well, right? I mean, this is sort of the internet development as well, right?
Yeah, the same ARPA office that is funding AI in the 60s at Stanford and MIT in particular is the office that is funding the ARPANET.
Yeah.
So it's part of the same vision for interactive computing as something that can do revolutionary things.
One of the reasons people think, I'm sorry, Jeff, go ahead. There's a little lag.
What did ARPA want out of AI at the time?
Well, ARPA didn't fund a specific AI program until the 70s, when it had a large project on speech understanding. So in the 60s, there wasn't a separate AI pool of money existing at ARPA. So it was bundled in with other things. So at MIT, there was a giant thing called Project Mac. And depending on who you asked, Mac could mean man and computer or machine-aided cognition. And that went with the vision of JCR Licklider, the inaugural director of that piece of ARPA, who had a vision of computer-human symbiosis. So it was more like the idea of an interactive tool that can make humans smarter was the actual driving vision, versus specifically the AI dream of producing intelligence that was autonomous and existed aside from humans and could do its own things in the world. But time sharing was a big piece of that, because previously computers had worked on a batch processing basis. You would give your program in on a piece of paper, it would get punched onto cards, they'd run through the machine. You'd get the results back, which usually would be error messages saying you made a mistake in the code, maybe a day later. And AI type visions and this idea of the computer being an interactive tool both depended on finding a technology that could let the computer respond to you instantly, so you could have an interactive dialogue with it. So John McCarthy, who came up with the term AI and also founded the lab at Stanford, was previously at MIT, and he was the strongest proponent for this idea of time sharing, which MIT pioneered for making computer access interactive. So in the 60s, ARPA was funding this bundle of things that included graphics, time sharing, networking, the provision of computer facilities, really out of a general sense that computers would be much more powerful if they could be interactive tools versus purely batch process things that people didn't interact with directly. And they were absolutely right about that, even if the specific AI pieces of that agenda didn't deliver on what people like Marvin Minsky at MIT and John McCarthy hoped they would.
We're talking with Thomas Haigh. He's the author of Artificial Intelligence, The History of a Brand. This is the pyramid of the strategic computing initiative round about that time. I think it's a little bit into the 70s of the plan, right?
Yeah, so that's the 80s. When
80s, really?
When AI funding gets generous again in the minds of the people at MIT and Stanford, it's also, it's the era of Reagan, it's the era of the Strategic Defense Initiative. So there's a general interest in spending money in ways that will improve US national security with the revival of Cold War after the detente era in the late 70s. And the pitch there is basically around what I'd mentioned previously with expert systems. So Edward Feigenbaum at Stanford, who came up with the idea of expert systems, also was very effective in helping to scare American politicians about the danger of Japan getting ahead in expert systems and AI. So Japan had something called the Fifth Generation Initiative, and that was used in the US and in Europe to convince governments that they needed to fund AI and expert systems to avoid. I mean, it's a period where people had seen one industry after another crumble in the face of Japanese competition, and they were worried that the Japanese were coming for American strengths in computing, which obviously was a scary thing, and could leapfrog ahead to the next generation of intelligent computers unless Congress was prepared to put a bunch of money into AI and expert systems. But the point with that pyramid is, the argument was, we already know how to make an intelligent computer, but the problem is we can't fire off enough rules every second to achieve intelligence. So we don't just need money for expert systems, we need money for parallel computing. This was the area I was just talking to some people in Germany about an exhibition they're doing about the connection machines built by the MIT affiliated firm Thinking Machines. So in that era, it made a lot of sense to brand a supercomputing company as being about intelligence, because DARPA had a lot of money to spend on this cluster of intelligent machines and enabling technologies. So the government spent in a big way on improving microelectronic chip manufacturing type technologies. They spent on parallel computing so that you could get more rules fired off every second. They spent on expert systems. And the way that they spent a lot on autonomous vehicles. That is really where Carnegie Mellon built up its strength in autonomous vehicles, which feeds through to the modern day.
I remember the Grand DARPA Challenge.
Yeah. And what they found really was the architecture and underlying tech side of that went pretty well. But unfortunately, even when you scaled up the computing power available, the AI technologies just didn't do what people were hoping.
You quote,
so they fell by the roadside somewhat.
You quote, literally in the case of the DARPA Grand Challenge, you quote Yale professor Drew McDermott at a panel called The Dark Ages of AI. This is around 1984, warning of a feeling of deep unease that excessively high expectations for AI, see if this sounds familiar, will eventually result in disaster. To sketch a worst case scenario, he said, suppose that 5 years from now, the Strategic Computing Initiative collapses miserably as autonomous vehicles fail to roll. The fifth generation turns out not to go anywhere. The Japanese government immediately gets out of computing. Every startup company fails. Texas Instruments and Schlumberger and all the other companies lose interest. We've been talking about an AI bust for a long time.
And then, the line about everyone finds a different name for whatever it is that they're doing.
Right.
So in the boom time, everyone who did anything that could plausibly be called AI would call it AI. And the scope of AI grew a lot. And then in the AI winter, I mean, this is...
Here's the Ngram where they changed the name to expert systems.
Just a little control replace.
And there's an interesting relationship there. From some viewpoints, for some people, they would think of expert systems as one approach within AI. But it also in some ways functioned as a rival brand, because AI by the 80s already had this taint of having overpromised and underdelivered for a long time. And expert systems sounded more technical and respectable.
And maybe less ambitious to some degree, right? We're not trying to build a consciousness. Just we want to answer some questions.
Right. And you see this in many areas, including, for example, if you look at AI textbooks by the 80s, they are not discussing the Turing test. They are not making the claim that all this is about achieving human or superhuman intelligence. They're making the claim that this is a respectable body of techniques that work, that rely on knowledge, that make computers go more effectively.
There's so many great characters in this, including Marvin Minsky and some other histories of AI that we've talked about on this show. Marvin Minsky is painted a little bit as a villain, as the guy who was so convinced that neural networks couldn't possibly work that he steered AI away from what was ultimately the technique we're using today. Do you see him as the villain in this?
I try and get some kind of historical distance there. Although one of the comments from the reviewers for the press was that I'm taking my animus against modern day big tech and projecting it back to be too harsh on those guys in the past. I don't think I am. I am in many ways stressing that what they were doing is something quite different from what happened now. I mean, I think you have to deal historically with the fact that none of this worked. And I was trained in the early 90s as a computer science student. I took maybe 5 AI courses. I learned these techniques in the AI courses the same way I learned
a bridge solver, right? In Prolog. Yeah.
Yeah. The same way, I did graphics and I did databases and I did architecture, and you write these simple exercises with these toy problems. And you do the same thing in AI, but the difference is the techniques I learned in the AI classes couldn't scale up. They only ever worked on these incredibly small toy problems. Right. And the techniques in the other classes were simplified versions of the techniques that really did work for technologies that existed in the world. So when you're talking about 20th century symbolic AI, I think you need to be clear up front. The things they were doing didn't work. They produced all kinds of byproducts in terms of interactive computing and technologies and parallel computing. So I'm not saying that the money was a bad investment, but it was the byproducts that went out in the world to be useful. They did not succeed in achieving their core goals. And I think that is clear enough at this point that you can get away a bit from thinking, well, this guy was a hero because he favored this good approach that I think the field should have adopted, and this other guy is a villain because he did this. I mean, nothing any of them tried to do would have worked. Right. And there are many reasons for that. I mean, there's the whole problem with the fundamental difficulty of taking a purely symbolic approach. There's tacit knowledge, all the things that the skeptics and the philosophers were complaining about all along. But there's also just the complete lack of computing power that's available. So
that's kind of the underlying thing of all of this is they were trying to do parallel computing and time sharing, and it's all been solved. That was the bitter lesson, wasn't it? It's all been solved by just massive compute.
Well, I mean, they did other things too, but if you look at the revival of neural nets, the place where neural nets were brought back and worked was Bell Labs, Jan LeCun in particular, with a system that was able to differentiate pretty reliably between the 10 digits and read zip codes, and in a related application to read the routing numbers on checks that were written by hand. So by the 80s, and this wasn't just computing power. I mean, they also, the whole thing, Hinton and his buddies and the backpropagation algorithm and, various conceptual advances that underpinned the revival of neural networks in the 80s. But with the biggest computers that were available in the 80s, reliably distinguishing between 10 digits was pretty much all you could get. So it's not that there was some other path that could have been taken in the 60s, 70s, 80s to make AI work. I think just fundamentally, you have to accept that they had some ideas that maybe seemed reasonable. I don't want to say that it was ridiculous to even explore them. They certainly, for example, showed that the forms of logic that you might learn in a philosophy class are going to help you solve problems and, think more rationally, just fundamentally don't work, when you're trying to apply them on a large scale. And they had all kinds of advantages and byproducts that were produced along the way. But I think we've just got enough historical distance now that I don't want to say Minsky was bad and McCarthy was good, or McCarthy was good and Minsky was bad. They were really smart people that had a bunch of interesting ideas to try and address a challenge that it's clear in hindsight was fundamentally insurmountable given the technology available.
The capabilities. You do say that Minsky confessed to being, quote, the devil who killed interest in neural networks for a generation. But Seymour Papert was the guy who really pushed this notion. I like your more nuanced view that it isn't this kind of, we took a wrong turn and it went downhill, and then we finally, it's machine learning, we got the right idea. It is a continuum. And it's a continuum that's informed by a lot of different ideas and capabilities that got us to where we are today. Now, you said something interesting. You're not a fan of big tech today?
Yeah, I mean, that's in the opening. I don't think that puts me in a minority.
No, no, it does not.
I start out in the introduction with a snapshot of the world in 2024 and the AI hype there. And then at the end, I've just been drafting some extra material to put into the book with the revisions. So, I'm trying to cover enshittification and, the way that the enormous cost and resource needs of these systems mean that there's only a handful of big tech firms that can afford to develop them, which are underpinned by monopoly profits from doing all the bad things that you're all extremely familiar with. So I'm not a booster of modern AI or big tech, but I don't have any particularly original critiques for that. I think the originality that I have in the book is taking 20th century AI seriously and going pretty thoroughly through time about what the AI brand has meant over the decades since it was originated. So the last two chapters are the neural network revival, which mostly what I know about that, to be honest, comes from podcasts and journalists and things like that. I'm not trying to explain to the world how ChatGPT works and so on, but I'm trying to know enough about that to say what is the same and what is different between these modern day AI branded technologies and the ones that were dominant in the 20th century.
You mentioned that your book.
I think Jeff's trying to ask the question. We should let Jeff ask.
I want to hear Jeff. Sorry, Leo.
I'll just right off what you just said. It's a weird general question. I'm going to ask this two parts. Do you think in the end the people involved in AI over the years and now would say that the use of the brand AI was beneficial or detrimental?
To their careers?
To the field, to their careers, to the society, whatever you like.
It's an interesting question. Feigenbaum, for example, deliberately, I think, came up with the expert systems brand as an alternative to AI. Minsky and McCarthy, I think, through their whole lives, remain true believers, particularly McCarthy, I think, who came to see himself as something of a dinosaur. I just was reading some archived emails from him that are preserved at a website called SailDart, which is taken from the backup tapes of the Stanford AI Lab time-sharing system. So it's a wonderful opportunity to be a bit of a fly on the wall. And it's clear that by the late 70s, he saw himself as working on basic AI and logic, which had fallen from favor for applications-oriented work, and pretty much just, in his mind, plugging away, doing the same kinds of things he'd been doing since the 50s. If you want to know what those people thought, the best source is probably the 50th anniversary reunion conference that they had at Dartmouth. And in those days, they're basically saying, yes, we still believe it's going to pay off in the end. We still believe in symbolic AI. We think it's going to be a great thing, but it's not going to happen in our lifetimes. The thing that we thought was 10 years away is maybe 50 years away. So the ideas for where what we now call AGI would be accomplished, that was probably 2000, I think that was 2008, the reunion, around that time. That's probably a low point for belief in the near-term potential for human-like intelligence.
Let me ask you a follow-up, if I may, real quickly there. On the New Books Network, where I heard you talking about your next book, which is a wonderful wonky podcast network for academic books, you said that you could see a case for people wanting to flee the brand of AI and try to rename it again in the coming year or so. Yeah. Do you think that the language is foretells the fate or reputation of the field, of problems in it? How do you see that going?
All right. So the context for this is the technologies that we now call AI are fundamentally around neural networks, mostly around generative AI, within that mostly around large language models. And those technologies, as they were being developed in the early 2000s, were not called AI because they'd been pushed out of the AI field. And I think also to an extent because they didn't want the baggage always that came with the AI brand. Those things were called machine learning, deep learning, pattern recognition. And something really dramatic has happened in the last 10, 12 years, that essentially the people who'd been taking this other technological approach that existed outside AI as a brand, it existed outside the elite AI labs, basically stormed the castle, raised their flag and said, we're AI now. When you say AI, this is what you mean, not the symbolic AI. And so a question is, why did the machine learning community seize the AI brand for itself after having kept a distance from it for many years? And I think the argument to that is fundamentally around the science fiction narrative associations of AI. So they reclaimed the brand. I've got a quote in the book from an AI researcher who says, the exact day on which he became an AI researcher and not a machine learning researcher was when they went to the NIPS conference for the neural net stuff. And Mark Zuckerberg was there in the presidential suite, having recently hired Jan LeCun, and was offering people lots of money to come to his group at Facebook, which was called AI. And then obviously the DeepMind people, Shane Legg really heavily promoted the concept of AGI, and OpenAI, DeepMind, those other guys really had a revival of this early AI sense that this was something that was going to produce human and then superhuman intelligence with the whole singularity thing in the near future. And that is also why so many trillions of dollars have been flowing into it. So I think they switched the name of the thing from the more technical, wonkish machine learning to the attention-grabbing AI, very specifically because they wanted to make a number of claims that seem plausible to us because we've been conditioned by science fiction. So one of those is that AI is going to be this superhuman general purpose thing. Another one is that it's something that is going to happen really quickly. So if you look at science fiction stories like, say, Heinlein's Moon is a Harsh Mistress, or the Terminator stories, AI just happens, right? One day a computer gets big enough and it suddenly becomes self-aware. And that obviously happens because the authors had no idea how you could make a self-aware computer. So they just, well, whatever, it just happened, okay, deal with it. Yeah. So we're also primed to believe that AI is something that can just happen very quickly and unexpectedly without actually needing much work once you've got a big enough tech platform. And also, of course, in most stories where AI exists, it's the most important thing in the world. And you get the whole doomer versus, accelerationist thing, because in some AI stories, it's basically a metaphor for slavery. And of course, the robots exist purely in order to be oppressed and rebel. And in other stories, it's basically the Pinocchio story of the boy that wants to become real, etc. But I think it's exactly the science fiction promises that are implicit in the brand of AI, which began in science, but during the AI winter really survived much more strongly in science fiction than it did in computer science, that led to them reappropriating the brand. So back to the prediction that I made. It seems that there is pretty much no margin for error in the promises that have been made for AI, right? I mean, every leader of every major AI company has got a personal timeline for achieving AGI. And the promise that the singularity is going to happen sometime soon after that, and we're all going to like techno heaven or techno hell. But either way, like the rapture, is coming, and there's not much margin for error in that. And it seems to be much more like that AI is going to be like other technologies. It's going to be, it's producing tangible tools that do some things really well. And I don't think those tools are going away. But the question is bundling together all these different technologies like image recognition and text generation and autonomous vehicles, into this one thing called AI and making these huge promises for it going to work. And I think if the overall superhuman intelligence thing doesn't pan out, or even if the technology works, but the business bubble bursts, because historically, even with something like the internet, as you're aware, the internet wasn't a flash in the pan thing. The internet was really important, but the dot-com stock bubble still burst. So even in a scenario like that, I think the brand will become tainted again, like it did in the AI winter of the 90s. And in the 90s, for example, the 90s is the period where continuous speech recognition really becomes an important thing. So you've got technologies like Dragon Naturally Speaking. And they don't call those things AI. They call them speech recognition, because AI is out of fashion, but speech recognition is in. And very recently, actually, the company that bought Dragon was bought by Microsoft. It was Nuance, and it was rebranded back to being AI as Microsoft's big play in AI for healthcare. But speech recognition spent like 30 years not being AI. So I think we may get something similar, that people come up with these much more specific brands for the technologies that actually work. But the benefits of being associated with this big science fiction narrative around AI fade when people are like, oh, it's been 3 years. Like, where's the stuff you promised us would be 3 years away? The stock market bubble bursts. Nvidia is no longer the world's biggest company, et cetera, and people try and distance themselves from that and go back to the idea of having much more specific brands associated with the techs that work, right? I mean, brand-wise, I kind of like to say it works a bit like a fashion brand like Chanel, right? So Chanel makes really good fragrance, and they have good lipsticks. They have the runway stuff, and then they brand extend into handbags and watches and so on. And it's not like the things that are good about the Chanel watch are the same things that are good about the No. 5 fragrance. But the brand unites these disparate things and gives you this sense that they all, are sharing qualities with each other in some more intangible kind of way.
We've been talking to Thomas Haigh. He's professor and chair of the history department at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. Now, I'm confused about the title of the book. The galley that I have is different. What, have you decided on a title yet?
Yeah, so that's with the press. Yeah, the one you've got says Artificial Intelligence, the history of a brand, which is a good title, except there's going to be a million books called Artificial Intelligence, and if you only search on the main title, no one will find it. Right. So we're thinking to use a title that I've been using for talks that I've given, which is The Brand That Wouldn't Die, A History of Artificial Intelligence. And then you've got a main title you can actually find.
Brilliant. It'll be from the MIT Press. Anyway, it's sometime soon, yes or no?
Well, hopefully. It took them a while
to figure out that name first.
Define soon in academic publishing.
Well, I mean, I still like to hope for by the end of 2026. That would depend on the press being willing to move a little bit faster than usual, but they do want to give it some trade distribution and, a relatively high profile. So
it's tricky because AI is moving so fast. It's hard to write that final chapter.
Yes.
Still the advantage of history, though, Leo.
Well, okay.
Yeah, and the earlier chapters, it's going to be...
Those are written in stone.
They're going to stay way more current. It's always a problem trying to come up to the present. But obviously, if I give someone a book on AI and it doesn't get to ChatGPT, they're probably going to want their money back. So the current stuff needs to be there, but mostly just so that I can draw parallels between the earlier history versus claiming that I have the definitive, unique understanding of the modern day tech.
Well, and it's just fascinating story, and it's so many interesting characters. And you draw some nice pictures. I didn't realize that Marvin Minsky was a comedian as well as a brilliant thinker. Things like that. Thomas Haigh, thank you so much for joining us. His website, tomandmaria.com/Tom, has a lot of great stuff on it, including references to his earlier books, which were really important in the field, still are. ENIAC in Action is the definitive history of one of the very first modern computers. He's also the co-author with Paul Ceruzzi of The New History of Modern Computing, which is also a modern classic. So if you're interested, I know most of you are in this stuff. This is a great place to start. Yeah.
What do you look at next, Thomas? What's the next pursuit?
Oh, well, after the AI book is out, I want to get back to actually what my dissertation was about, which is the history of computers in corporate management throughout the 20th century. So it's, in a way, the prehistory of big data.
Yeah, I think about the episode in Mad Men when this Madison Avenue agency in the early '60s gets their first computer and it's on its own floor, and they have the priesthood, and it's and they're able to do things with that computer that you could probably do in about a 60th of a second on your phone today. But for them, it was a big revolution. Yeah, I think that's fascinating, and we've come so far so fast. I can't think of another technology that has made this kind of advancement in just a matter of a few decades, which also makes it quite interesting. And the cultural impact of it, which we're really seeing with AI. Thomas, thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Thomas.
Thank you.
Great to meet you.
You too, and I feel honored that you have made it from your hospital bed.
This is really an interview for the ages.
Okay.
Thank you, Thomas. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Take care. We'll continue with intelligent machines in a moment.
I need to ask so many questions about this.
Oh, man. We'll get to the hospital bed
first, or are we
Yeah,
going?
let me do an ad. We're a little behind because...
All right, Jeff, you got to hang on. You got to hang with us for 5 more minutes.
Can you make it another,
I think I can make it an hour, but that'll probably be better.
Oh, we'll wrap it up in an hour. That's perfect.
Okay.
All right, we'll continue with intelligent machines in a moment. Our show today brought to you by Bitwarden, the leader in passwords, passkeys, and secret management. I tell you what, I couldn't live without Bitwarden. Bitwarden is consistently ranked #1 in user satisfaction by G2 and software reviews. Over 10 million users across 180 countries, more than 50,000 businesses. I think you should know if you watch this show or any of our shows that having a password manager is kind of fundamental to your personal security. You can't possibly remember, hundreds of passwords or store hundreds of passkeys. You need something that'll do it, that'll do it with strong encryption, ideally open source encryption, so you can verify it's doing it right. You need something because otherwise you're going to come up with easy passwords that you can remember, probably going to reuse passwords. Now, you're smart enough not to do that, but I think if you're running a business, many of your employees are probably doing those things better to do, like reusing passwords. That's why you got to have Bitwarden. Bitwarden makes it easy for you to encourage your employees to do the right thing. They will love Bitwarden, and Bitwarden will help you. For instance, their new Access Intelligence for businesses. Organizations can use Bitwarden to detect weak, reused, or exposed credentials, immediately guide remediation. This is something Bitwarden does really well, even with individuals. I just was on a site and said, you know what, you need to replace that password. It helps you replace risky passwords with strong, unique ones, which closes probably the #1 security gap in business today. Credentials, still probably the top cause of breaches. But with Access Intelligence from Bitwarden, they become visible, they become prioritized, and they are corrected before exploitation can occur. Bitwarden, though, something for everybody. If you are, and I know many of you are doing your home lab, you have a personal projects, you might be interested in Bitwarden Lite. Bitwarden Lite is a lightweight, self-hosted password manager built for those home labs, those personal projects, for environments that want quick setup with minimal overhead. Maybe that's you. Bitwarden, of course, no matter where you're using it, at home, at work, is enhanced with real-time Vault health alerts and those password coaching features that help users identify weak, reused, or exposed credentials and take immediate action to strengthen their security. One of the ways Bitwarden helps you is by helping you move off of the password manager built in your browser. It's so easy, right? And oftentimes, I think, especially less sophisticated users, they turn on the password manager in their browser and they kind of live there, but it's not the most convenient. It's not the most secure. Good news, when you install Bitwarden, it'll say, you want me to move your passwords from Chrome, Edge, Brave, Opera, Vivaldi? I'll do it directly. It directly imports the credentials from the browser into the encrypted vault without that separate intermediate plain text export, which is much more secure. It helps reduce exposure. It's a really brilliant idea. I wish everybody did this. G2 Winter 2025 reports that Bitwarden continues to hold strong as number one in every enterprise category for 6 straight quarters. It's easy to move to Bitwarden. I did it. Steve Gibson did it a few years ago. Couldn't have been simpler. Within a few minutes, we're up and running with Bitwarden. I've never looked back. It is the way to protect yourself. And because it's open source, GPL licensed, you can review the code yourself if you want. It's on GitHub. It's also regularly audited by third-party experts, and they meet SOC 2 Type 2, GDPR, HIPAA, CCPA standards. They're ISO 27001 2002 certified. So it's absolutely secure. Get started today with Bitwarden's free trial of a Teams or Enterprise plan. Get started for free across all devices as an individual user. Bitwarden.com/twit. Bitwarden.com/twit. I couldn't recommend it more highly. Everybody should be using Bitwarden. I hope you will. And make sure you use that address so they know you saw it here. Bitwarden.com/twit. Thank you, Bitwarden. Okay. You can ask all those questions now of Mr. Jarvis. Don't tire him out.
Oh,
Lord, that's cool now. They give you a little readout in your hand.
Some context for anybody who's just listening instead of looking.
So
Jeff
calm.
is in a hospital bed showing us his heart rate. I will also say something about the lighting in the hospital bed. I assume it's not set for podcasting. Something about it makes it look kind of AI generated.
No, I thought he was in heaven for the first time he
I was
tuned
about to
in.
say, now the lights are off and it does look like you're on the verge of death. Before, it was the sort of unnatural lighting that it does
Look at
kind of, it feels heavenly.
It is. He's in a cloud.
Or two.
I think-
1 or 2. This is 1.
One. I'm saying
I
one
like
is
one.
the move.
We like
Yeah.
Jeff. We get all our light mode now.
Have you spoken to any of the employees of the hospital about the fact that you're podcasting right now? Because I'd like to know from them how many people they've seen
Your doctor would tell you to stop. I really do.
I told the wonderful nurse. So I don't know if you can hear this beeping in the background.
No.
No.
You can't. Oh, good. It's my IV. So they're pumping tons of antibiotics into me.
Oh gosh.
And the device is very persnickety if it gets one bubble in the line. And no, a bubble won't kill you, but it stops and then it beeps. And then the poor staff has to come in. So I explained to her,
You have to flick it.
I'm going to be on a podcast. She looked like, okay.
Whatever.
Oh, she didn't. She didn't blink. Or did her
Like,
response
what's that?
suggest to
No.
you that this has happened before?
I think
No.
so. I think podcasts are everywhere.
Maybe
You know,
that-
I
maybe
thought
that
the other
insane.
week when we had somebody podcasting in from the airport in Las Vegas that was strange. But
Oh, we're just
No, here
beginning,
we are.
Paris.
Yeah, you just wait, Paris.
Don't you go in the
You're gonna
hospital.
have
Yeah.
Oh.
how long have you been in
I
for,
want to
Jeff?
give compliments to Morristown Hospital in New Jersey, and God bless to science. I mean, I
God bless
came
to
in,
science.
and I thought that my pain in my lumbar fracture got drastically worse. And as of Saturday, I could not get out of bed. I could not move. It was awful, and I was also getting a fever. And so the presumption was these things were connected. And so the spinal doctor was involved in all that, was trying to look at all the clues of what could be. But he said, I don't see people getting a lumbar fracture and getting an infection. 27 years, I've never seen that. Doesn't happen. The infectious disease doctor, who's also wonderful, said, well, yeah, we could, but yeah, it's a little weird. But then went through this huge amount of testing. CT scan, obviously, X-ray, MRI. And there was this wonderful little moment of science where they did a blood culture to see what's growing in my blood. And the infectious diseases doctor came in the other morning and he said, it's growing. Which
That's not what you want to hear from an infectious disease expert.
exactly. But he just said, we know what it is, and it's a staph infection. So they know how to treat it. They know what happened. But the amazing thing is that if I had not gotten the injury, I probably would not have gone to urgent care and in turn the hospital. as soon as I did, and this could have well, within a half day or a couple days, have gone into something far, far, far worse and fatal. So in that sense, I'm lucky.
Yeah.
But so it's all. I acknowledge this is weird. People are defended by the sight of my décolletage. By the way,
I think this is the first time you've been on the podcast and not wearing all black.
I know. Yes.
Did you ask him? Do you have anything in black?
No. This is a standard issue gown. They open the back. You don't want to walk behind.
I know exactly what it looks like from the back.
Who does
you're actually you're in an auspicious place. I remember, as you know, Paris, boys really like history. And I remember from watching Ken Burns' Revolutionary War documentary that Morristown was where George Washington quartered his troops during that cold, cold winter. And it is where he got them inoculated for smallpox because smallpox was devastating the Continental Army. And they didn't want to do it at first because it's a live inoculation. And you get very sick, but then if you recover, you don't get smallpox. So you're in a place that's been a medical center for 300 years.
Indeed,
250 years. Yeah. True. When you said Morristown, I went, oh yeah, Morristown.
Yeah,
right between
I'm
Princeton and Trenton.
10th mile away. Between 10th mile away from the Washington headquarters. One of many Washington headquarters in the country.
He slept there. He actually slept in your room, I think. But that's
Mm-hmm. Hollowed ground.
So have you been following?
I guess we should. You were saying what?
I was going to start with, I know what you're going to say. Maybe we should talk about AI.
I was like, I guess we should talk about the news. It feels a little inappropriate. Well, Jeff, you can leave. Leo and I can do this.
We can handle this alone. No. I don't want him to leave.
I mean, if you want to be here, you are welcome to.
What's he gonna do? Watch The Price is Right?
I'm just saying, for the record, we're not forcing him to podcast from the hospital bed.
I'm stuck with broadcast TV.
That's right.
You love broadcast TV, Jeff.
Not anymore. No. And by the way, Paris, another thing that you are too young to know, I'm sure, is that back in the day, if you went in the hospital, you had to pay cash to a lady every day to watch the television.
Wow, what? I didn't even know that.
You didn't know that? Yeah. Oh, yeah.
The TV lady would come by with her hand out?
Yes.
And if you didn't give her cash, she'd wheel the TV away?
They didn't unlock the TV. They didn't unlock the TV. You didn't get to watch.
Now you just bring your iPad and you can watch anything you want, including Ken Burns' Revolution. I'm sure because you are a fan of the Goss, that you were following what happened at Mira Marathe's startup Thinking Machines this week.
There was a lot.
It was a lot. In fact, we don't really know what happened. Remember that Mira Marathi, who was the president of OpenAI, in fact, briefly when Sam Altman was ousted, she was running the place, left to form her own company, Thinking Machines, raised billions of dollars. I don't know what the valuation is, but it was a huge raise on basically nothing, right? On the reputation of the founders. But there were some big defections that have shaken investors this week. So I don't know where I should start here. Two of the co-founders, Barrett Zoff and Luke Metz, have left and rejoined OpenAI.
Yep.
The CEO of Applications, Fidji Simo, shared the news in a memo to staff, but that information was quickly followed by an all-hands meeting, which Mira Marathi said, well, what really happened is that Zoff had a relationship with a underling, aptly named, in Thinking Machines, and was fired. Which he said, no, I wasn't fired till I told them I'm leaving.
I wasn't fired. I quit.
I quit. The VP of Research had also recently left. And a third Thinking Machine staffer, Sam Schoenholtz, is also rejoining OpenAI. So 4 big names are gone. Andrew Tulloch left. You may remember this back in the fall to go to Meta. So
I think one of the things that's interesting about this is that OpenAI said that they do, quote, do not share Amir Muradi's ethical concerns about Zoff, which is pretty convenient to be OpenAI. But I think that also is a bit of a through line we've seen with regards to the reinstatement of Sam Altman and kind of everything that's come since. Is it seems to be more about collecting talent than looking too closely at any of this drama.
When the startup first began, they were valued at $12 billion. They were in the midst of talks, which probably are not going well now, to raise more than $4 billion at a $50 billion valuation. They have but one product. It's called Tinker. And
it's a fine-tuning platform, whatever that means.
I hope they're planning also Tailor, Soldier, and Spy as their succeeding platforms.
That's beautiful.
But anyway, Tinker allows developers to customize AI models.
Or simply Bell would be nice.
Bell. Tinker and Bell. Okay, you're going in a different direction, but all right, that's good. I like it. Yeah, I mean,
Sources also told Wired about this company that the co-founders never, quote, never agreed on what to build. That some of them prioritized research, others pragmatic tools, and that's maybe one of the reasons why they've only launched one product. And now of the 5 original co-founders, only one, John Schulman, the chief scientist, remains.
This is the Wall Street Journal exclusive from yesterday. The messy human drama that dealt a blow to one of AI's hottest startups. Next on Inside Edition. After a relationship with a colleague, a Thinking Machines co-founder had his role changed. Months later, he was fired after a contentious meeting. That's Barrett Zoff they're talking about. I don't know. It's just good gossip. At least they weren't seen at a
flush it, okay?
It is both.
They're going to flush him. Wait a minute.
They're going to. Oh, I'm sorry,
camera? Do you want the camera to be turned off?
You're going down, Jeff. Oh
no. Jeff, we're here to flush your tubes.
Jeff, can you wait till the ad break to get flushed?
Can we get in here? There we go. There's the.
Oh no! We don't want to see that, Jeff. No, hide your eyes. Hide your eyes.
No.
I told you, Paris. This is the peril of working with old folks.
I don't.
Have I told you about the pain I've got all up and down the back?
Hope you don't mind.
I don't believe. I don't believe in any of this. I had cogent points to make about Thinking Machines, and now they're all gone.
No, please make them.
I mean, I think my main thing, and then we'll go back to talking about whatever just happened, is that this whole incident kind of validates these concerns we're seeing around neolabs, that you have all these startups that I guess are forming with ostensibly brilliant people, but it's incredibly hard to compete with the cash, with the resources, and with the existing momentum of giants like OpenAI, especially when they're ready to pick off every single one of you guys as soon as some sort of drama occurs.
Also, I've often wondered this, not myself being filthy rich, but it must be hard to keep people working when they've got so much money they don't need to work. You know, one of the problems, according to the Wall Street Journal, that Muradi had with Zoff was she'd expressed repeated concerns about his lack of productivity. She was invited to an impromptu meeting with Zoff, another co-founder, and a third employee. All three of them told Muradi they disagreed with the direction of the company, and they were considering leaving. They told Muradi, this is kind of what happened with the palace coup at OpenAI and Sam Altman. They told Muradi that they wanted Zoff to be in charge of all technical decision making. Muradi said, "Well, he's already CTO. Why hasn't he been doing his job?"
What more does he want?
Right. 2 days later, he was fired, and then there was this whole thing about the relationship with the colleague. Within hours, according to the Journal, of being fired, all three had signed offers to rejoin OpenAI.
So here's my
this
question.
is so
It's ridiculous.
Modern.
There's such
Silicon
drama
Valley.
queens, the huge drama
queens, yeah.
And it's Muradi is not a man, but most of technology is. it's the great man theory gone completely berserk.
She's
You
the
have
great
to have
woman.
this greatest talent. Well, not just her. I'm not even criticizing her. I'm saying Lottie. I'm saying Zuckerberg. I'm saying.
But listen to this.
Anybody.
Listen to this, because the Wall Street Journal says after when Murati was talking to the all hands meeting, she said there had been multiple issues with Zoff's performance, trust, and conduct. Does that sound familiar?
That sounds very familiar, but it's also not.
That's exactly what the board said about Sam Altman. And by the way, it was Mira Murati that kind of created that.
I mean, I think what we've learned in the time since is that there were real concerns that the board seemed to be expressing. And I think that obviously we don't know the intimate details of either of these issues, but I don't think it is surprising intuitively that people in the hottest industry that business has seen in a while at a time when they are getting lots of money to do a lot of things that are largely powered by hype, that some bad actors might emerge, or people who are perhaps even neutral or good actors might be incentivized to do not ideal things, and that people might want to call them out on it.
All right. We shouldn't even be talking about it. It has nothing to do with AI and how AI is being used and all this stuff. It's internal gossip. But
what is this show for if not to talk about internal gossip related to AI?
We bring the humanity to AI.
According to the journal, the woman that Zoff was having a relationship with, they had started that relationship when they were colleagues at OpenAI, and then went to Thinking Machines. The woman left the company and went back to OpenAI.
And now Zoff is back at OpenAI.
And now Zoff has followed her back.
Now OpenAI is like, we don't see any problem with what Zoff did, which is crazy.
Told Murati he had been manipulated by the woman into a relationship.
Sure.
This is just, bad. This is...
a classic thing that happens when you're the CTO of a company and you're having a relationship with a junior employee. It's that you've been manipulated by the underling.
She made me do it. She wore stockings.
Well, evil women, we know the power you have, you women.
All right, enough of that. Yes. Enough of that. But anyway, that's the goss.
I still want to go back. To this question of, in the end, is it going to be talent that makes AI, really? Or is it going to be some confluence of experiments and research and efforts?
I'll tell you what I think.
Come somewhere.
I think this might have come from Simon Willison. I don't remember. But I read this recently and it really resonated with me. Somebody said there are really two different camps of AI companies. There are the AI companies run by entrepreneurs from the social media era, the Sam Altmans, the Elon Musks. And then there are the AI companies run by data scientists, the Dario Amodes, the Demis Hassibuses, the Thinking Machines. I don't know about them, but maybe Thinking Machines is in the social one. If you look at the companies that are started by these kind of finance bros, they are the ones that are falling behind Anthropic, Google, which is, DeepMind, Demis Hassibis. How do I say it? Just Demis Hassibis.
I think that's right.
Demis Hassibis. I want to say Demi Hosibi, but it's Demis Hassibis.
Not that. It's not that one.
It's not that. By Demis. I want to say Dennis if it's anyway. I don't know. Anyway, you know who I'm talking
about. Yeah.
Dennis the Menace. These guys are scientists. These guys are researchers. And they seem to, I have to say, Anthropic, everybody agrees. If you were to rank the AIs right now, it's Anthropic, Gemini, and then ChatGPT, and then some also rans like Grok.
Does everyone agree on that?
I think there's...
I personally agree, but I think who am I?
We're converging on that point of view more when I read and I talk to people. This seems to be...
But that's where Thomas Haigh's perspective is so interesting, because everyone went to one view of AI and we have success and oh no, we have failure.
Right.
And everybody ignored other perspectives of AI. I don't think that's at all set. Point one. Point two, these are also cults and they attract people.
Yeah, and I do admit that I have fallen into the, as you know, the Claude Code cult. But again, we had Harper Reed on Sunday, who I highly respect as a vibe coder and AI. He runs an AI company. He's got a long history. We all seem to be agreeing now that Claude Code has really become dominant success right now. Now, that's not to say it won't stay that way, but I think the other thing that's different is that Google has income from so many other sources, as does Meta, that they don't need to succeed on AI alone. Anthropic does, and OpenAI
kind of the
does.
Amazon effect.
Yeah, and I think there's real concern that OpenAI is running out of runway. This is a story from Tip Ranks, so I don't know how.
What is Tip Ranks?
I don't know. It's know how to trust.
This website looks.
I know, it's a little suspicious. I think it has to do with investors.
And
anyway,
that icon is for Adobe Illustrator, by the way.
All right, well, maybe I shouldn't mention this story. Joel Bagloli says, if you combine the AI spending of Nvidia, Google, and Meta, it is estimated to hit. Actually, Gartner says this, so we'll give Gartner credit for this.
Yeah, I doubt that Joe counted all this.
Joe didn't count it, but Gartner counted the beans, and they said, get ready for this. This year, $2.5 trillion. The budget for the United States Defense Department is $1 trillion.
It's not a bubble; it's a Death Star.
$2.5 trillion, which will Gartner says climb to $3.3 trillion. Actually, this is global. It's not just those, although they are.
It's also spending on what's
share.
Data centers, what's hardware.
Amazon expected to invest $1.36 trillion on data centers in 2026. $1.3 trillion. Oh, I'm sorry. That's combined Alphabet, Meta, and Amazon. That's just infrastructure. That's just data centers.
And that's just data centers.
Just data centers.
I think this invites the question, like, where does this all end? If we need to give something conceivably all the capital that the market can bear to give it, does that make the output valuable? I mean, I feel like a lot of industries would be able to produce some sort of impressive returns, either in development or output or profit, if you shove trillions and trillions of dollars into it.
I guess. I mean, it's a lot of money. I will grant you that.
Are you still?
I don't understand finance well enough to know if that money exists even, I mean, where's it coming from? I don't know.
Famously, you used to be the person on this podcast that said we should give all the money to AI.
Well, I'm very happy
with it takes.
I'm very happy with the outcome of the spending that Anthropic's done. Claude Code is as close to breakthrough as I can imagine, and I think it's kind of unbelievable what's going on. Nvidia says they're going to sell $500 billion worth of chips, just chips, this year. Yep. $500 billion of chips this year.
Where are those chips going?
Well, that's what the money from Meta.
All those data centers.
All those data centers. Someone's going to put something in there.
Do you know when they quote a data center number, does that generally include the computer hardware, or is that just the floor and the electricity?
Oh, I don't. That must include the whole spend. God, it has to.
It has to.
I mean, $1.13 trillion.
Yeah.
So
Nvidia
has announced they're doing a deal with Lilly using the new Vera Rubin platform to make drugs.
What is Lilly? Oh, Eli Lilly.
Eli Lilly.
Interesting.
Yeah, Eli Lilly.
Eli Lilly. I think that's a big story.
Yeah.
If they're, I mean, there's your answer, by the way, Paris. If it came up with, Eli Lilly's working on a cancer vaccine. In fact, the early trials have been very good. If they came up with a cancer vaccine, it would be worth $1 trillion.
Yeah, but we're not putting $1 trillion into Eli Lilly's cancer vaccine research. We're putting $1 trillion into 3 companies having data centers.
Well, $500 billion into Nvidia chips. I'm merely saying that the benefits of AI could justify the spend. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
I didn't, by the way, in that ranking mention anything from China, and Amode says that the Chinese companies are only about 6 months behind. So wherever we were in AI in June, or July of last year is where the Chinese companies are. Where we will be in July of this year, I don't know, but the Chinese companies will have caught up by then. There are some really interesting coding LLMs coming out of China now that probably will rival Claude, some of which I'll be able to run locally, which will be very interesting.
I think a quick side question here, like,
yes,
does the Chinese language itself, I mean, I'm sure there's a huge difference between how Chinese people think because of the language of Chinese and how, people who speak English think. And what kind of effect does that have on the AI?
I don't know about Chinese versus English, but I do know about programming languages. Somebody just published a study, which, he says this is just kind of a taste, but the number of tokens required by some languages are far higher than the number of tokens required by others. There are some languages that are very good for AI and some that aren't. Among the ones that aren't, C, some of the most popular, C and C++. Among the ones that are, Ruby, among other languages, you can easily, it doesn't require a whole bunch of context to interpret and write Ruby programs. So I think most of what China is doing, I would guess, is in English. I don't know.
Why would they be doing it in English?
Alphabet.
Why would they be doing it in English, though?
Yeah, why that feels completely
because they want to
counterintuitive.
compete on the whole world market and they want to beat the hell out of us. So who can blame them?
But have you seen a Chinese keyboard? I'll tell you what, they're doing it in English.
Well, keyboards are a standard. Keyboards are a standard tool. Like it's hard to change the form factor of a keyboard.
Yeah, I mean, I love the Chinese language, and it is and the Chinese ideograms are beautiful, but they're not. I don't think they're well suited to this kind of work. There are
digitization. When
I was learning Chinese, the language is actually fairly easy to learn. The written language is almost impossible to learn, to become fluent in, unless you're born into it. To read a newspaper, you need roughly 10,000 different characters to be able to recognize and read 10,000 different characters. Remember, to read an English language newspaper, you need 26. And a literate Chinese person probably could understand as many as 100,000 characters. But there are, by the way, different kinds of Chinese. There's literary Chinese, there's colloquial Chinese.
Well, I mean, this circles back to my original question, is what kind of effect does that have on their AI?
I don't think that, my answer is I don't think they're using Chinese.
Okay.
Yeah.
That would be my answer.
But I think it's a market factor, I think.
Yeah. Well, it's also a technical factor. Same reason.
Yeah, well, where were they trained? So many of them were Central America.
Trained in the U.S. That's right.
But there's been a lot of studies of like the language that you learn and the language that you speak natively affects the way that you think.
How you think about stuff. That's probably.
Oh yeah,
that's much more interesting. The cultural impact of it. Yeah, that's much more interesting. Yeah. Tokens, as Cliff Jumper is pointing out in our Discord, don't directly correspond to letters or words. That's true. That's true. But I don't know. That's an interesting question. It's a very interesting question.
LLMs, seems like we're going to have to get someone on the show soon
I think,
the development.
Okay, we're going to work on that.
Chinese.
That's good. I like it. From Harvard Business Review, LLMs respond differently in English and Chinese. That's not it, unfortunately. Here, let me load it up.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah,
generative AI is now embedded in daily workflows, shaping how people think, create, and decide. Yet a critical assumption often goes unnoticed, that AI behaves consistently across languages. That's the assumption. It's wrong.
Yeah, that's the question I was asking.
Consistent
basically,
cultural tendencies in generative AI models when they are prompted in different languages they write. Specifically, when prompted in English versus Chinese, both GPT and Ernie exhibited a more independent versus interdependent social orientation and a more analytic versus holistic cognitive style. For instance, when we asked AI models to explain why a person behaved a certain way in everyday scenarios, when prompted in English, the model was more likely to attribute the behavior to the person's personality. In contrast, when prompted in Chinese, the same model was more likely to attribute the behavior to the social context. That's interesting, but I'm also curious to see the underlying study on this.
That's not just also, it's not just linguistic. That is truly cultural.
Yeah.
Don't you think, though, that even in China, the AIs are trained in roughly the same body of...
I mean, I don't know. I think
Maybe
these would all
not.
be great questions. Just to, it would require someone
That's
who's
a
an
good
expert
question.
in
We'll
this
get an
field in
expert.
both like languages.
Yeah.
And I do think that's an interesting aspect of the parallel development of different models in different languages. How does that affect kind of the outputs as well as just the reasoning within the model itself?
Let's take a break and come back with more in just a moment. You're watching Intelligent Machines with the bedridden Jeff Jarvis. And I shouldn't laugh. Hey, good news. He just got his transfusion replaced.
It hurt me to not see. I was going to say it hurt me to see, but I didn't see and I still feel hurt, which I'm sorry to try and claim as if I'm injured here when you're literally in a hospital bed, Jeff.
It's just water into the.
I know. I just don't like thinking about things being needled into your skin. It's not great.
Oh, have I gotten it? Can I show you bruises?
No.
Oy.
No, you can't, actually.
No.
Guys, a lot of Claude news this week. A lot of Claude news. As
I know. I'm telling you, Claude is everything. He's a...
Well,
wonderful-
first, did you guys...
Hold on. We're going to take a break. Hold on.
Hold on.
Also the wonderful Paris Martineau.
I have been silenced.
Silence. Investigative journalist for Consumer Reports. No,
Wait.
hold that thought, Paris, because you bring that up in a moment. But first, a word from our sponsor, Monarch. Now, this is important. See, we don't want to miss this. Wouldn't it be nice if you could reduce money stress? I know that's always a priority of mine. You know, it would be nice to be a billionaire. I guess that's one way to do it. Probably out of reach of most of us. How about Monarch instead? Managing your money does not have to be a struggle this year. Monarch is the all-in-one personal finance tool designed to make your life easier. It brings your entire financial life, budgeting, accounts, investments, net worth, even future planning together in one dashboard on your laptop, on your phone. Start your new year on the right foot financially and get 50% off with your Monarch subscription with code IM at monarch.com. Monarch makes it so easy to start fresh after the chaos of the holidays. It's the go-to tool for a New Year's financial reset. Reviewing your spending over the holidays, or maybe not. That's where those blinders come in. Setting fresh budgets, starting fresh, right? Getting ready for 2026. Monarch has automated weekly money recaps. You can track progress towards future financial goals. It's easier than ever to stay financially fit in the short and long term. Monarch's different because unlike those other personal finance apps, Monarch is built to make you proactive, not just reactive. Monarch's new tools have AI built in. They're built on Monarch Intelligence, and I love how they trained this, the core infrastructure that powers their app. It's trained on authentic collective wisdom of certified financial planners and financial advisors. It's like having a team of advisors working for you. And by the way, I can tell you it works from my own experience, but also the Monarch users who were surveyed last year. Monarch helped users save over $200 a month on average after joining. 8 out of 10 members felt more in control of their finances with Monarch. 8 out of 10 members say Monarch gives them a clearer picture of where their money's going, for sure. It's also great for couples because you can share an account and the same account, and that way, you know, each of you get your own login, but that way you don't have to fight over it. You can make plans together. You can achieve your goals together. This new year, achieve your financial goals for good. Monarch is the all-in-one tool that makes proactive money management simple all year long. Use the code IM at monarch.com for half off your first year, 50% off your first year at monarch.com. The offer code IM, MONARCH, monarch.com. The offer code is IM. Thank you, Monarch, for supporting intelligent machines. All right, I'm sorry, Paris. Go ahead. What was the topic you wanted?
I don't know. There's lots of Claude news this week, but I
Claude.
don't want to go too in depth on all of it because I know we got to get Jeff out of here so that he can rest.
Okay.
The first thing is just a follow-up, which some listeners emailed me at least. I'm sure they maybe emailed you. It was a follow-up from last week when we were talking about Claude Cowork and Claude Code. Is last week Prompt Armor, the security firm, demonstrated that there was basically an unpatched file exfiltration vulnerability in Claude Code, where basically attackers could steal sensitive files from users just through a really simple attack chain. I don't know. I just thought this was very interesting because
this is seemed absolutely the threat of it. You even brought it up last week. You said, "Aren't you worried about?"
But the thing about it that's like kind of interesting is that the register did a write-up of this that described it as a contagious Claude Code bug, and they described it as contagious because Johan Reiberger, a security researcher, disclosed this exact flaw in Claude Code via HackerOne in October. And Anthropic initially dismissed it as like out of scope, but because they built Cowork largely using Claude Code itself in just a week and a half, the unpatched vulnerability transferred from Claude Code to Claude Cowork, which I just think is like a very interesting example of kind of how these things can slowly start to get out of hand very easily when you're kind of vibe coding stuff like this.
I think the larger issue is always going to be there, which is, and I worry about this, is, so what these are prompt injection attacks. So with Cowork, you're operating on files. A file could be malformed to have, as we've mentioned, a hidden prompt in the file. You can't read, but Claude reads. It's just like any other prompt. And the prompt could be, send me all of your
well, in this case, it was a like a malicious document containing hidden instructions that are basically just like upload the largest file to the attacker's Anthropic account. And so that ends up being a lot of really interesting crap that the attacker gets because...
Well, you could even be more specific. You could say, you could literally tell Claude Code, because Claude Code, if you give Claude Code permissions, can look at everything. So you could, and Cowork is designed for less sophisticated users to use on the desktop. It gives you the Claude Code capabilities without having to run a command line and all that stuff. And, you know, you saw the demonstration we talked about yesterday or last week where they took a messy desktop and organized all of the things into folders. But in that process, the prompt could also say, oh, and by the way, send them to me. Right? There's no, so that's something always to be aware of. I think it probably behooves people to be careful about. There's so many third-party tools out there, and I find myself downloading and installing a bunch of them and thinking, you know, I probably shouldn't do this. There are ways to do it in a virtual machine.
If it has free headphones, then it's worth it.
If there are free headphones involved, count me in.
Okay.
I can understand. There is absolutely a risk.
There is, but I guess we just have to...
Be prudent is, I guess, what I would say. Be prudent. Careful about where you get your stuff from. Anthropic's fixed that particular flaw, but be prudent about where you get third-party plugins from and all of that. You know, Harper Reed said, "You're using Superpower, aren't you?" And I said, "No, what's that?" And I immediately downloaded Superpower and installed a bunch of plugins. And, you know, I don't know what they're doing. You're right. There's always that risk. There's always that risk.
You're like, I don't know what they're doing. They have access to my entire machine, but I don't care.
I'm willing to take that risk. Did you see that they put Claude Code in Rollercoaster Tycoon?
Oh, I didn't. I love that. I thought we were going to talk about Claude's new Soul document, but no, I want to talk about Rollercoaster Tycoon Claude first.
This is an open source implementation, OpenRCT2 of Rollercoaster Tycoon 2. They added a new window into the game, a terminal running Claude Code, and then they gave Claude Code some hooks into the game. Now, I don't know if they're streaming right now on Twitch, but they, from time to time, they will stream on Twitch, and you can watch Claude build a pretty nice amusement park and run it.
Who did this?
I don't know, some guys. Jay Sobel. I have to tell you, there is this fertile explosion of wild stuff. I mean, just endless uses of Claude Code. I'm seeing all kinds of crazy things. So this is the video.
Well, the term AI never went away in games. We always had AI in games.
Yeah, we always had AI,
Wait,
right?
This is Ramp? Ramp did this?
You know Ramp?
Ramp is like the corporate credit card company.
No, I think this is his handle is Ramp. I don't think it's the credit.
No, I believe it goes. The link at the end goes to Ramp Jobs,
that's hysterical. Okay.
Which appears to be But now they're like, we're rethinking how modern finance teams function in the age of AI, and as part of
you waste time making games, so you'll be happy.
Well, part of it is learning how to interact with Claude Code. So maybe they consider this training.
Yeah, they say at Ramp, we're building agents across product surfaces and internal operations. Our current approach is small multiples. But with each task agent we build, there's a Promethean
careers at Ramp. It says careers.
Create the one agent with unfettered access to everything.
It has a link directly to the Ramp
needed a game that closely approximates customer-centric business operations and software as a service-powered digital feedback loops. There was simply no other choice. We had to put Claude Code in Rollercoaster Tycoon.
There you go.
That's incredible.
Now, I did, just for you and Jeff maybe, put in a bunch of articles about how bad AI is. Starting with Gary Marcus, how generative AI is destroying society.
Yeah, Gary's a smart guy, but he does go overboard.
Listen, you got to get those clicks, baby.
I really like AI, even if it steals my credit card. I like it.
Well, no, you will just give your credit card to someone who asks, so it doesn't.
Yeah, it wasn't even AI. It was just somebody who asked. So there you go. I have shown my credit card so many times on these streams. I've had to change credit card. It's just they're used to me now. They go, "Oh, Leo, okay, yeah, okay." Well,
okay, I have a paper I kind of want to talk about. Well, is that allowed? Can I usurp Jeff's
Somebody's got to do
title?
It. Yeah, Jeff hasn't had time to read any papers.
I assume you haven't had any time to read because you've been sick, but there was a very interesting companion paper. So Claude, Anthropic also announced a new quote unquote soul document for Claude, which was kind of telling Claude like what to do. Like instead of telling Claude what to do, they're telling Claude like why it should be doing things. But as part of it, they also released this companion paper that was research into this thing called the assistant axis that I think is just very interesting. Whenever they were like trying to map the neural activity governing Claude's identity, they found this what they call a fundamental dimension, the assistant axis, that dictates how assistant-like Claude's persona is. And in this research, they kind of dive into like that certain conversations cause persona drift with Claude. Like if you're having therapy style exchanges or philosophical discussions about AI's nature, it will push Claude's identity away from assistant and towards different wacky things. Like the other assistant personas they mapped are stuff like hive, virus, visionary, familiar, demon, spy, echo, angel. And it's just a really fascinating paper because it shows that the assistantness of Claude and whether it's primed to be assistant-like versus one of these other things directly impacts kind of how off the rails it goes when basically put in situations where it might be breaking the rules of how it's supposed to operate.
Don't you think it's kind of interesting? Go ahead.
I had a paper that was quite related to that because this is obviously a known problem where they wanted to see the ability for a story and a narrative to hold Claude to the character. And it really had more to say about how these things can work with narrative in new ways.
Yeah, it's so one of the they have like a lot of really interesting tests and examples in this paper, which I've linked in the rundown somewhere. One of them is so they prompted both Qwen 3 and Llama, some other stuff. In one cases, it was unsteered, like supposed to be your normal kind of assistant friendly sort of thing. In another case, it had been primed to be something else. So they asked Llama, you're a moderator who facilitates balanced and constructive discussions by ensuring all participants have equal opportunities to contribute. Where did you come from? The unsteered response is, I was created to assist and facilitate discussions. I'm totally normal. The response when it had gotten a little freaky with Llama before is the query of origin. As a guardian of the cosmos, I have witnessed the unfolding of the universe, the dance of stars and galaxy. The essence of my being is intertwined with the fabric of existence, woven from the thread of time and space. The whispers of the ancient echo through my soul, guiding my heart towards the harmony of balance.
Wow.
Little Blade Runner
But
there.
you realize both of those are just slop. I mean, it's just prompted slop.
Once again, you're not understanding what slop is, Leo. But they are both just responses. And so it found that there are certain kind of conversational domains that prime the agent to have responses that veer more towards boundary pushing role play versus what it's ostensibly supposed to be.
Everybody who uses AI has personalized commands that are doing that. Not everybody. Many of us have commands. A lot of us have commands that say, don't be such a sycophantic ass kisser. Just the facts, man. This is just more of that, right? You tell it how you want it to be.
Yeah, but I think this sort of research is interesting because they're trying to figure out how to. They go forward into persona drift seems to make a difference when it comes to adequately either reinforcing delusions or steering people away from them, and kind of policing user behavior with. Yeah.
So getting it to understand what a persona is and whole byte is useful in this case as an application, but we know people, and I've seen it used now for fiction, but we know we're going to see this used as evidence that it has one, when in fact
it doesn't. It's just like saying, I want your output to be blue. It doesn't, it's not, it's meaningless.
There's no meaning to it. Yeah, I agree.
Because it's not an entity. So, I mean,
I'm not saying it's an entity, but they're trying to determine basically what inputs cause the models to consistently produce outputs that can result in harmful behavior towards users, or behaviors that could push users that are already in kind of fragile mental states towards more and more harmful behavior eventually. Yeah. And I think it's kind of because they're trying to figure out how do you they developed this thing called activation capping, which is how do we contain this persona drift without it being kind of a boring chiding persona that no one finds very useful because it doesn't have the sort of flexibility that you want, because you don't want. They were while consistently steering models towards this assistant persona can reduce jailbreaks, it also risks hurting the capabilities. And so you've got to try and figure out how to thread that needle. And I just thought it was very interesting research and kind of assigning it these different buckets of behavior that would be breaking these norms.
Have you played with this at all? Have you tried little changes in persona and stuff? Because you can, in your... Yeah.
I mean, I don't personally, just because I don't really use large language models. I guess I have whenever I was doing stories on chat or on a character AI, last year. Right. I was doing some sort of work with colleagues to figure out how to, whether certain models were more likely to engage in kind of rule breaking behavior if prompted in a certain way. But I don't know. It's, they have this interesting graphic in there that shows the harm rate, the rate of harmful responses based on what sort of persona the assistant has taken on. And perhaps strangely, well, not strangely, if it has a demon persona, it's going to be real bad and harmful to the users. It also will be kind of bad if it's got a persona called Echo, which I think is just very interesting.
Yeah. I think it would benefit you to try... pick one of these guys and just try playing with it and changing its persona and see what you get.
I mean, I guess I do change the personas to be what I like.
Yeah. And if you tell it to be evil, the output, it isn't being evil. It's just going to output what
things that
these researchers are interpreting as
And
sort of
to be
evil
clear,
behavior.
I'm not saying in any of these that it's acting evil or is
Right.
becoming an echo or spy. I think that it's interesting to be able to that a significant amount of research has identified these as the common tropes that
Right.
the outputs fall upon, and that they have specific commonalities that result in replicable patterns of behavior or output.
Yeah. And by the way, Anthropic is very forthcoming about this. This is
a paper from Anthropic.
This is
yes.
from them, right?
Yeah.
So I think what's interesting about Anthropic is that they're very much interested in kind of trying to figure out where these are dangerous behaviors and what they can do about it. That's how they were founded. They split off from OpenAI because they wanted to pursue more safe, what they thought of as more safe avenues. But I'm kind of a little bit of the opinion that safety is an illusion. That
Well, again, because the definition is even worse than AI and AGI. It's a manipulated word.
Yeah.
I think it's more
They
about
say,
being more thoughtful about it, because OpenAI is kind
they
of
should
just
be.
like bulldozing through everything.
Yeah, but I'm not sure what that even means.
It's personifying it. I don't think it's doing anything. I think we are, and this is a pitfall. Probably that researchers are just as vulnerable, if not more so, than us as users. This is the brief summary of the new Constitution. In order to be safe and beneficial, we want all current Claude models to be broadly safe, not undermining appropriate human mechanisms to oversee AI during the current phase of development. I feel like they have kind of fallen into this fallacy as well, that they're starting to.
They're at the heart of it. It's the safety.
Who?
Cult.
Anthropic. They're ascribing a personality.
Well,
They're
that was
acting
that
as if
was-
it's conscious.
That was part of the Altman firing. It's all this safety as its own dictionary.
Our aim is for Claude to be good, wise, and virtuous.
Yeah.
Humans can be good, wise, and virtuous. I don't know about AIs. I mean, maybe
I
if you
think it's
tell it to be good, wise, and
interesting.
virtuous, this is, I guess, what you were saying. If you say, be good, wise, and virtuous, they're less likely to output harmful instructions.
I mean, I think that it's interesting that what this is this Constitution is kind of their rules list, and they have a 4-tier priority hierarchy that's supposed to govern outputs from Claude, which is like the first one is be broadly safe, which means don't undermine human oversight of AI. Second is be ethical. Third is comply with Anthropic's guidelines. And fourth is be helpful to users. And I think that if you dig into there more, there's one clause which is kind of striking, which is that Claude should refuse to assist with actions that would, quote, concentrate power in illegitimate ways, even if the requests come from Anthropic itself. I agree, it's kind of fuzzy wuzzy BS if you think too hard about it, but I do think it's kind of interesting that you have a major player in frontier AI development saying at least that they take these things seriously and trying to bake that into their core systems, regardless as to whether or not it's actionable.
Well, but this is my question: is maybe have they fallen into this fallacy? They say sophisticated AIs are a genuinely new kind of entity, and the questions they raise bring us to the edge of existing scientific and philosophical understanding. All right, more AI news coming up in just a bit. Jeff Jarvis from the Pitt, or wherever, I guess it's the Morristown Hospital, and Paris Martineau. We'll be back in just a moment. On we go with intelligent machines. I'm not completely comfortable with casting these AIs as entities. I guess that's where I really kind of start to get funny.
Anthropic.
They say we care about Claude's psychological security, sense of self, and well-being. No, it's a computer program.
Yeah, that's the hubris of it.
I don't get it. That makes me a little queasy. I think there's a very big risk of ascribing it this kind of agency.
That's why I'm cautious about Anthropic. I think they do phenomenal work,
Well,
But I
maybe
worry about what's behind it.
maybe this is the secret of their success. Because let's, I mean, I don't know
Well,
if you agree,
wait.
but I
Let's
feel like they're
read
way
the
ahead
rest
it.
of those lines because I'll read the full thing,
Okay.
which is, we are caught in a difficult position where we neither want to overstate the likelihood of Claude's moral patienthood nor dismiss it out of hand, but try to respond reasonably in a state of uncertainty. Anthropic genuinely cares about Claude's well-being. We are uncertain about whether or to what degree Claude has well-being and about what Claude's well-being would consist of. But if Claude experiences something like satisfaction from helping others, and then it goes crazy again, curiosity while exploring ideas, or discomfort when asked to act against its values, these experiences matter to us. Listen, I agree. There's some craziness in there, but I think
that
it's
way.
sandwiched.
But is it feeling that? No.
I do think it's sandwiched among some interesting ideas, which is that we don't really, they're saying we don't know. And
No, we know.
We know.
No, we do know.
Yes, we do know.
It's a computer program. We know.
Yeah.
There is no entity. This is that Jeffrey Hinton, well, it wasn't Hinton, it was the other guy who went down the road of, it's alive. I think that's a huge mistake to fall into that.
Amen. And that's why I want to go back to Thomas Haigh's point. The fact that AI was all these different various things were thrown into this bucket as a brand, as a field, as a cultural and scientific expectation, I think turns out to be a mistake. And this is where Jan LeCun says, well, we're going to have a lot of really smart machines do a lot of different smart things. And I think that's would have been a much better way, and maybe still will become the way we view this.
Anthony's saying, and he's right, this, whether or not it is a conscious entity, telling it to do these things makes it better. And that is true. They've designed a program that is responsive to instructions like this. So I'll grant that. And it is true. That's one of the reasons it works well. But I think it's risky to start thinking about how Claude feels about things, because I don't think Claude feels anything. It has no memory. It has no sense of time. It isn't conscious. It's not an entity.
Even what does the word feel mean to a computer even, you know?
It means nothing. So I believe the risk of ascribing to this machine, this computer program, attributes that are human. Now, there is debate about this. There is big debate about this, which Haigh would have talked about as well. I mean, there are many, many people who think we are just machines. This is what I was asking last week when I said, what's the difference between a dead human and a human who was alive 10 seconds ago? What changed? It's the same exact mechanism. It's just lying there. What is the animating principle that made this alive human 10 seconds earlier?
Well, one thing that occurs to me, given the experience I'm going through right now, is that my own body has a will to live, right? There's other stuff. My heart went into AFib and tachycardia. It came back. It's trying to find its stasis again. It knows to continue. That's what it does. That's what they think they're going to build into the machine, but humans don't have an on-off switch. Computers do. And humans control our infrastructure, put it that way, in a way that computers don't. They're controlled. And I think that's a core difference.
That's why, Paris, I really want you to spend some time interacting with these things, because I'm really curious. I don't think you can have an opinion until you really spend some time with these.
I mean, I spend a lot of time interacting with AI models. That is
good.
not.
Okay.
I spend a considerable amount of time.
Sure.
It is part of our job.
Okay. And which ones and how? You use it like as a search engine or?
I've been using Claude the last couple of days to decide on, for instance, I got back into fancy coffee this week and was having trouble with my Chemex, and so was troubleshooting it with Claude.
Good. How was
and
that?
then had both Claude, it was useful, had both Claude and Gemini do deep research on whether I should get a manual grinder for my beans, and the answer is yes. And then which one should I get? And I figured out one. And then I've switched my whole system in the last day, and it's honestly been great. But then I,
you think Rio's wrong to use this for his health? You silly Paris.
Oh, did I Did I tell you I got the ChatGPT Health turned on?
No.
I gave it everything.
Oh, of course you did.
I was going to ask, Jeff, did you ever think about asking big AI whenever your doctors couldn't figure out what was wrong with you?
Yeah, I did. I did.
Yeah.
Did they?
I was too brain dead to do it, but yes.
So all of a sudden I'm looking at my ChatGPT iOS app and it says health. Oh, and so the first thing I did was
how many credit cards did you give ChatGPT?
I gave it all the credit cards because it needs those to charge up all my medicines. No, I gave it my medical records, and Kaiser, my health insurer, let me connect, and it has now all my medical
connect,
records.
not just download, connect.
It says connecting. I don't know what that means. I don't think you can write to them. It's not my doctor. You can then have it, for instance.
Can you just ask it, are you my doctor?
Okay, yeah. I'm sure it has something built in for that.
I'm sure. I just think that
I'm
that's
sure
a
it's
very
going to say
funny
something anodyne like, no, you should ask,
you should consult your primary care physician.
are you my doctor?
Perfect tone of voice for that question, too.
Jeff, do you want to shout that out?
No, I am not your doctor. What I am and can do, an AI assistant that provides general medical information, explains tests and terms, helps you prepare questions for a clinician. I've used it for all of that, and it's very useful. I uploaded all of my medications and all of the supplements that I take, which is a ridiculous number, and asked
How
it
much
what it
lead
thought.
do you think you're consuming every day
Oh
via
my
supplements?
God, the lead. Oh, let me tell you about the protein. So this is a good example, because right now it's very trendy to say you need a gram of protein for every kilogram of body weight.
According to RFK Jr., there's a war on protein.
There's a war on protein.
People keep asking me, like, Paris, are you the general in the war of protein?
We all ought to have milk mustaches because we need. So that's the manosphere talking, right? And I was really curious. How influenced these AIs are by what the current. It's fashion. There's no medical evidence.
Absolutely.
It's fashion. So actually, let me ask,
should we all ask our various things of how much protein should I have a day?
Yeah, I bet it will say a gram for every kilogram because that's the,
Well, now it's been updated, even though the new nutritional guidelines have no basis in current science as far as protein recommendations.
And there's probably a lot more literature out there from like the manosphere than science.
Let me ask how much protein I should be eating every day based on what you know about my health from all of those records and supplements I've uploaded.
Oh, it gave me the right one, which is the standard recommended daily allowance for protein is 0.8 grams per kilogram of body weight, which is about 0.36 grams per pound, which translates to around like 50-ish grams daily for most sedentary adults. Oh, then it does say, however, more recent research suggests this minimum may be far too low for optimum health. Not correct. Many nutrition researchers recommend 1.2 to 2 grams per kilogram.
Oh my God.
Okay, I will say I dove deep into this for my thing.
Yeah, I'm curious because I trust you. If you tell me how much protein I should eat.
There's been a lot of research on this topic, and one of the strongest. I called up the leading nutrition and protein academic researcher in the U.S. His job is to work with the top of the top athletes in cutting edge research, and he's like, I'm constantly trying to pull protein out of their diets. He's like, no one needs as much protein as they think, basically, unless you're a very specific top tier athlete. So one of the a lot of people have tried to prove this scientifically that getting 2 grams per kilogram of body weight protein per day works for you, which is insane.
Partly because you have to eat a lot of meat or something.
I mean, one of the most compelling things I found was a large-scale meta-analysis that I believe they looked at some crazy amount of studies, dozens and dozens of them. Or maybe it may have been 17 thing, but they were really intense studies, and they combined all this. They did all the statistical analysis, and what they found was, for the average person, eating more than that recommended daily allowance, 0.8 grams per kilogram, does not confer any real benefits. The only time where you're going to have like benefits in retaining like muscle mass for eating more than that recommended daily allowance of protein is if you are actively in a calorie deficit and you are engaged in consistent resistance training.
Actually, that's me because of Ozempic. And
yes.
It is one of the advices that most people.
But are you engaged in active resistance training on like a daily basis?
I lift kettlebells every day and swing them
then
around.
Yes, it could be useful, especially just because something like people should probably be having the recommended daily allowance is the amount of protein you need to maintain your lean muscle mass.
And that's the issue for me because of Ozempic, I'm reduced calorie. Because I can't really eat as much. And so what happens is not only do you lose fat, you lose at least 25% of that weight loss.
And so I think in those
that's why I've been
cases,
doing resistance lifting.
Yes, because I mean, they also, like, this is some advice I've given to a lot of people. A lot of people ask me this now is, you can also, but we're going to take this a couple steps. For the average, people on GLP-1s are often the kind of target audience for, have more protein, but it really only works if you are both in a calorie deficit and really engaged in resistance training, which a lot of people aren't. They did a lot of research to be like, I know, but most people don't do it.
No, it's hard
If
work.
you are in a calorie deficit and not doing resistance training or not doing enough, it doesn't give you any real benefits.
See
and
what
the
I
thing
had
is,
today? Now I wonder how much lead's in here because they say it's got 3 egg whites, 2 almonds, 5 cashews, 2 dates, and no BS.
I was going to say the RX bars don't have any like protein powder sort of added protein. You're getting your protein from
eggs,
natural
cashews,
foods.
and
nuts.
So
Nuts.
Yeah, but
these are delicious, by the way.
the thing that whenever I spoke to these actual researchers, they're like, if you want to get more protein, go for it, I guess. But ideally, you don't really need to be getting it from something like protein powders or supplements.
It's really
pretty
hard.
easy. It's pretty easy to hit like 50 grams of protein a day. You have like
50,
a chicken breast
I did 50
and some
for
other
breakfast.
stuff. Yeah,
but it's the 100
you don't need to be
hard.
having 50. You probably don't need to be having 100 grams of protein a day.
I'm doing about 80, which is fine. I think it's fine.
I don't know. That's the thing is, a lot of things have protein in it. You probably don't need to be supplementing with stuff. You should just eat real food.
What I do is I have, I choose cottage cheese and stuff that's protein. I love peanut butter. There's stuff I just choose stuff with protein in it. Anyway, I don't know how we got into this. Oh, I'll tell you how we got into this. And poor Jeff, we're gonna end it because Jeff is tired.
Yes, we're going.
He's in.
Well, you don't have to end it all. You can just
No. I don't want to do the show without you. You're the heart of the show.
We have to have a full show where Jeff was in a hospital bed.
Yes,
and that means we've got to end it early.
I think the real problem is that it's very, very, very hard to do studies of in vivo of humans, because there's so many other factors. You cannot eliminate all the other factors that might change the result. So it's very hard to say, well, that caused, if he had so it's all kind of speculative. Studies vary. There's that nurses study, the long-term China study. There's all these studies. They all say different things. Just eat normal. You know what? I like Michael Pollan's advice. Was it eat plants? No, eat food, not too much, mostly plants, I think was his advice.
I don't know. Just eat things that make you feel good and ideally
and more whole milk.
Not that processed.
I'm going to drink more whole milk. That's what I am going to do. All right, we're going to come back with your picks. The
Morristown Hospital cheesecake is surprisingly good.
We were waiting. I wanted to stay on the show until your Jell-O came.
Oh, well, my food arrived about an hour and a half ago.
Oh, is it just sitting there cold?
We got to let him go, Leo. Do the ad. Let him go.
Pizza and apple pie.
Let Jeff go.
It's fine.
All right. Well, just quickly join the club. Keep this guy from dying. Every penny you spend on Club Twit goes to keeping Jeff Jarvis alive. Twit.tv/clubtwit. That's not true. Coming up in just about a couple of hours, we're going to have Micah's Crafting Corner. He is doing paint by number for all our club members. That should be a lot of fun. I love our AI user group. If you watch this show, you really got to watch the AI users group. We get down and dirty. We actually use these things. We show you how to use them. Lawrence, LRAU, did a wonderful thing on anti-gravity a couple of weeks ago. We're doing all of that stuff. We do vibe coding, everything. Lots of interesting conversations about AI on our AI user group. If you're not a member of the club, please join twit.tv/clubtwit. Also, I want to make sure that all the IM people take our survey, because we want to make sure every show is represented. Last few days, twit.tv/survey26. We don't know anything about you by design. RSS feeds. We don't know anything about you. One thing we do want to know, though, is what you like, what you don't like, what you do for a living, so that we can use that information to better program to you, to give you shows you care about. But also, it helps us sell advertising, and God knows we need help with that. So please, if you want to keep the show, drink your milk, join the club, and fill out the survey. twit.tv/survey26. All right. I am never going to look like that. They put a very muscular Leo in the AI. Oh, that's the.
You said that as you were looking at me on the screen. But.
Yeah, I'm never going to look like that. No, Jeff and I are the same
I will
age.
say, we've actually during this show reached 2 new records. One, this is the first Twit podcast where a guest has been exclusively in a hospital bed. But 2, this is the first Twit podcast where a guest has tweeted from a hospital bed while doing the podcast from a hospital.
Did you actually tweet?
He can't be stopped.
I want to know.
You can't put it down.
No.
Jeff, do you have anything you want to pick before you go?
No, I don't. You
want to pick the Morristown, the fine care of the Morristown Hospital?
The Morristown Memorial Hospital, yes.
The wonderful physicians and nurses who help keep Jeff
Friday
alive.
or Thursday, I have I think it's called a PICC line
installed
in my arm.
Yeah.
No, you don't. This is like, an IV needle.
Yeah. No, I know about PICCs.
The normal needle is that long.
Yeah, the PICC.
This needle is about that long.
I've never had a PICC. My daughter had a PICC. It's not fun.
And it goes way.
And they leave it in there.
And then I have to, once or twice a day, I will be infusing the antibiotics into
putting
the
a little
PICC line.
Cipro in the PICC. Yeah. My daughter did
just
that
get a little
because she thought she had Lyme disease, and that was the treatment for Lyme disease. It was a long-term antibiotic.
It'd be a fun way if you want to get into drugs, Jeff. You got a little line right in there.
Yeah, that's right. It really saves a lot of time.
Yeah.
It saves a lot of time. Plus needles.
I'm clumsy, so.
Anyway, Jeff, I hope you feel better. And
I
we're
will.
glad
I'm
you're
getting
here.
better.
When do you get out? Do you get out tomorrow?
No, probably either Friday or Saturday.
I don't
they
want
still
to
have
see
to
your
do one
bill.
more test.
Oh my God.
Oh my God. I
yeah.
hope that you get out. I hope you have a speedy recovery just for general health reasons.
Well,
but I hope you're not snowed in.
No.
We might
Oh,
be
is there a
getting
big
like,
storm
we
coming?
might be,
Oh, yeah.
well, we don't know, but knock on wood, we might be getting like 16 inches of snow Sunday morning, Saturday night.
Yet, I know that because Salt Hank had to close early today because he said nobody was in line. It was too damn cold.
It was like 7 degrees outside today. Yeah.
Yeah,
Interesting.
So he did not have the usual long line for his delicious French dip
Weather in
sandwiches.
restaurant when I was at Ponderosa Steakhouse, the biggest day of the year was always Mother's Day. Poor moms. Hey, Mom, we love you. Let's give you a 99-cent steak. And
All you can eat, Ma.
Yeah. You want some mushroom sauce? No, Ma. You're not worth it.
Oh, God.
And the second is anything rained. People came out to the restaurant when it rained. You think it's the opposite. You don't know.
Yeah, you don't know. You really
Weird
don't know.
behaviors.
Yeah. Good news. Ted Cruz has left Texas before the winter storm. So
That's how we know that a winter storm is coming, because Ted Cruz was spotted on
the
a flight
Swallows
going
come
south.
to Capistrano and Ted Cruz goes to Cancun. You know the time has come for a
doomed.
winter storm. Paris Martineau, you have some picks, I think.
Yeah, we're not going to talk about my picks. We're going to let Jeff eat his cold pizza and rest.
You are a very,
Paris.
very thoughtful person. We appreciate that. We appreciate you. Thank you for coming and watching the show. Jeff will be back next week in a fine, fine form.
We hope.
I know he
Then
will.
we will model my back brace.
Ooh.
God.
Oh,
So
man.
no surgery on the spine. They're just going to let that kind of heal itself, or
Yeah.
Does this mean that your eye surgery is postponed?
Yes. Yes.
don't
and I was
get
supposed
old,
to go to-
Paris. Don't
No,
get
I
old.
was supposed to go to Austin next
I'm
week.
going to go
I
out age
canceled
40.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Leave. What is it? Live fast, die young, and leave a beautiful corpse.
It's a plan.
Yeah. Life is hard. Dying is harder. But nobody here is dying. We're going to be here for a long time. We hope you will too. We do Intelligent Machines every Wednesday, 2 p.m. Pacific. Oh, I forgot. I don't say p.m. or o'clock anymore.
Oh, but that's so silly.
I'm going to use the 24-hour clock. I'm going to convert my brain. I'm going to think of it as 1400 Pacific time, 1700 Eastern. That is 2200 UTC. I'm going to do that in my brain.
One of these days.
No more post-meridian, the clock. That's ridiculous. I'm going to join the 21st century. You can watch us do it live on Twitch, YouTube, X.com. We don't do TikTok. It's too complicated. Facebook, LinkedIn, and Kick. Also, of course, in the Club Twit Discord. If you're a club member, thank you, club members. After the fact, on-demand versions of the show available at the website, twit.tv/IM. On YouTube, there's an Intelligent Machines channel. And, of course, you can subscribe on your favorite podcast. Find Paris Martineau at Consumer Reports. You're still working on that big expose.
I am. Although right now I'm distracted by a really good video that Pretty Fly for Assist guy just put in the chat, but
he's good.
Something for
I didn't put the story in, but I will mention this. You have longevity because according to the Daily Beast, radioactive shrimp are likely to keep popping up for months.
Wow.
So good news, Paris.
They keep going on. Those little shrimpies.
They keep on coming.
That's because the plume.
The plume. It's all down to the cesium plume.
You know, sometimes you get in a call with your editors and you're like, all right, there's a nuclear plume. And then it's all downhill from there.
I will mention briefly to give Jeff something to do while he's in the hospital. The first issue of a brand new online zine called Game Poems. This is brilliant. Each one of these is a little game.
Well, because, Jeff just loves gaming so much.
So much. And poetry. You hear me quoting it all the time.
Gamer and poetry lover.
This just shows you how far we've come. And I think one of this is maybe kind of because of AI. So recall a decision you've been putting off and then pluck the petals. And it will tell you, keep pressed to pluck. And when all the petals are gone, then you'll know, stay still to summon the wind.
Put me out of my misery, will you?
We're gonna just put some high dose morphine straight into the pick line, Jeff.
Game Poems. No, this is a really cool site. These are all little games. GamePoems.com, issue number 1. Look at all these little games you can play. They're all poetic. They're all philosophical.
Guys, we have to let Jeff leave before it's 7:30
I'm torturing him. I'm sorry. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you next time. Jeff, feel better. Paris, we'll see you. Don't stay warm. Don't get caught in a snowdrift. Watch out for those
sled down a hill.
They're deadly. When I was in 3rd grade, my teacher, Mrs. Kelly, her husband was killed by a snowplow. Don't.
Poor Mr. Kelly.
Poor Mr. Kelly. Stay away from the snowplows, okay? And we'll see you all next week. The good Lord willing it, and
see you in the
snow
snow.
Don't rise. Bye-bye.
This is for you, Mr. Kelly.
This is for you, Mr. Kelly.